just months after having their January 6th sentences pardoned or commuted by the president, several leaders of the Proud Boys are now suing the Justice Department for $100 million, claiming they faced a political prosecution. These are the people accused of masterminding the attack that day in this lawsuit, which was filed by 5 Proud Boys, including the group's former chair, Enrique Tarrio, claim that the Justice Department and the FBI under President Biden violated their constitutional rights in order to, quote, punish and oppress political allies of President Trump by any and all means necessary, legal or illegal. My source to start us off tonight on this is CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Elliot Williams. And Elliot, all of these people obviously convicted by a jury. I think the question tonight is, how strong do you believe the merits of this lawsuit are?
Caitlin, I don't think they're very strong, partly because a lot of the claims that they've raised already. They raised these questions, some of them at trial, about alleging that evidence was tampered with or that they were wiretapped inappropriately, that they did not get a fair trial, that the judge was biased. The judge, at least one of them appointed by Donald Trump himself in his first term. So these are sort of more of the same claims. Now, obviously, a court is going to have to take them seriously and hear it, but we've been here before.
Well, the question I think that I also have when I look at this is, are the options for this Justice Department under President Trump to either defend the prosecutions carried out under the Biden DOJ against these people that Trump pardoned, or settle with them? I mean, what alternatives or what route do they have here?
Yeah. And there's a third option, which is move to dismiss it. Right now, I have a hard time believing they do that, given the statements the president and others have made all over the last year or two about January 6th and almost expressing support for the work there. So I have a hard time believing that they would move to dismiss it. Now, settling it is the obvious option here. Most lawsuits get settled, but settling, even though it's not admission of guilt, it's an acknowledgement of the legitimacy of the claims being brought. And the Justice Department would have to say and put on the record in a court that we do endorse at least some of the things that these individuals are saying about the Justice Department broadly. Whether it's the Biden Justice Department or the Trump Justice Department, it's still the same entity for the purposes of what happens in court.
Yeah, Elliot Williams, will stay tuned and see what happens here. Thanks so much for that legal expertise here. Also, our political experts are here. David Urban is a Republican strategist and the former Trump campaign advisor, and Karen Finney is the former communications director for the Democratic National Committee. And David, I just wonder how you see this when you're looking at this in terms of not only legally what the Trump Justice Department is going to do, but also from a political perspective in terms of this lawsuit being brought.
Yeah, political perspective. Look, I am no fan of this particular group. Clearly, I think that their views are reprehensible and they're kind of on the fringe. They're the kind of polar opposite of Antifa. Both groups, which I think are the United States could do without. But I think they're not doing any service to this administration. And I'm hopeful that the Department of Justice will, in fact, move to dismiss this and robustly defend against it, because I do think it's wrong. Listen, I'm not sure each and every claim of seditious conspiracy. I don't know if they were the masterminds of January 6th. I'm not quite sure there were masterminds. I think it was much more of a mob riot than Enrique, whatever the gentleman's name is, masterminding some grand strategy and attack on the Capitol. I don't give him that much credit, but I think it's ridiculous that they're asking for money damages from the United States in the tune of $100 million. I hope they don't see one penny.
Yeah, Karen, how do you see this just in terms of, I think it's hard for a lot of people to think that, one, it would have gotten to this point after they were convicted on such serious charges, had such serious sentences against them, and not only had it pardoned or commuted, they're now asking for money and punitive damages from the Justice Department.
You know, if this were normal times, you're absolutely right, Caitlin, but we're in Trump's America, where white-collar crime seems to be okay as he normalizes it, where what was one of the things he did on the very first day in office? He pardoned all of these people, even those who perpetrated violence against the United States of America. So the fact, of course they're suing, I guess, is my message here, which is Trump made it very clear to them when he let them out on day one, I'm assuming some probably with an auto pen because it was like 1,500 people, But when they were told you're free, it sent a very dangerous message to these right-wing militia groups that they have a friend in the Oval Office. So of course they would file suit. And of course they did it in Florida, where potentially, I assume, they thought they'd get a more favorable judge. And at least David and I agree, though, $100 million in taxpayer dollars would be absolutely shameful.
Yeah, you know what I was struck by, David, is what Enrique Tarrio, the former leader, told the Journal. He was talking about how many issues they had getting legal representation when all of this was happening initially, but he said that they had basically everyone trying to represent them now. They spoke to more than a dozen firms, and he said, quote, "I believe attorneys are going to do backflips trying to get J6ers on board with a lot of lawsuits." Do you think that we'll see more copycat lawsuits like this?
Caitlin, I can't predict. Look, do I think that every one of the January 6th defendants deserves the sentences they got? No, I don't think that's so. I think there are gradations of this. Those on the west front of the Capitol, different than the east front of the Capitol, those that hit police officers and acted with violence, and those who were let in past the barricades by Capitol Police. I think that there's a wide range. It's a very complex day, and the defendants are all different. So I hope that we don't see 1,600 lawsuits here against the United States for breaking the law, and so we'll just have to wait and see.
But Caitlin, can I just remind us that each of these individuals were in a court of law. They were found guilty by juries of their peers. So it does, the evidence has been presented, as Elliot was just saying. They were lawfully convicted and then let out by Donald J. Trump. And again, so I wouldn't be surprised if any of them start to try to sue the United States, because again, I think the message that this president has sent is that it is open season. If you're a friend, I got your back. And if you're a foe, I'm going to come after you.
Yeah.
Well, to Karen's point real quickly, having a district, being tried in the district court in the District of Columbia, where basically 90% of the electorate, the jury pool, voted against the president, is different than being tried in the middle district of Florida, where 90% of the jury pool voted for the president.
Which is why they filed
not all
in
trials
Florida.
are equal, unfortunately.
Come on, that's why.
No, Karen, I understand. Karen, I understand. My point being, I'm not quite sure that everybody gets a fair trial in America
I just think
based on where you sit.
Maybe then they shouldn't commit crimes in areas if they don't want the jury there. Anyway, great discussion. David Urban, Karen Finney, thank you both for that.